Whether you want to add a soft and dreamy glow to your footage, gain X-ray-like vision to see through water, or capture cinematic motion blur that matches the big screen, there are many kinds of filters available for the Luna Ultra. A bit too many perhaps. We've got regular ND filters, an extra strong ND filter, a CPL filter, NDPL filters, a black mist diffusion filter, and finally an LPR filter. So in this video, I'll break down what every single one of them does, so you can figure out which ones you need, or if you even need any of them at all. All of the filters in this video were kindly sent to me by Freewell for review, but the concepts apply no matter which brand you buy. And since filters aren't all built the same, I'll finish with a few things to look out for when choosing a set. Let's start with ND filters. In my opinion, these are the most usable filters for the Luna Ultra, whereas the others are a bit more specific or situational. So what do they actually do? ND filters act like sunglasses for the camera, cutting down the light so you can shoot at slower shutter speeds during the day without overexposing your image. Those slower shutter speeds create natural motion blur, which can give your footage a smoother, more cinematic look. ND filters usually come in sets, with higher ND numbers blocking more light. Which strength you need depends on how bright the scene is and how slow you want your shutter speed to be. The difference they make can be quite dramatic in scenes with lots of movement, such as those with cars or waterfalls. But ND filters are not only useful for fast motion. Even in slower scenes like this, they can subtly soften people's movement and make the footage feel smoother and more natural. That said, using them isn't quite as simple as slapping one on and expecting great results. There's a bit of setup involved, so check out my dedicated video on them if you want an in-depth explanation. Next up is the extremely strong ND1000 filter. Technically, this is still an ND filter, but because it blocks so much light, in practice it serves a completely different purpose from the ND filters we just covered. Rather than helping you create natural motion blur in your video, the ND1000 is mainly designed for long exposure photography. It lets you use shutter speeds of half a second or longer during the day, allowing you to smear movement into something the eye can't see on its own. Beyond photos, an ND1000 is also crucial if you want to capture daytime time-lapses with heavy motion blur like this one. So while it's not a filter you'll use for your regular video work, the ND1000 definitely unlocks some interesting creative possibilities. Now let's move on to the CPL or circular polarizer, which might be the most fascinating filter here. Its primary job is cutting down reflections on non-metallic surfaces like water and glass by selectively blocking polarized light. As you can see, the filter has a rotating ring. Turning that ring changes the angle of polarization being filtered, directly controlling how much reflection gets removed. Interestingly, you can also rotate it to make reflections slightly more pronounced if that's the look you're after. This makes CPL filters a useful tool for shooting over water, or for scenarios involving lots of glass like automotive or real estate videography. But the need to rotate the ring and monitor the Luna Ultra's screen means it isn't a simple set and forget filter. But cutting glare isn't its only trick, it also changes how colors look. By removing the sheen from foliage, a CPL can make leaves and grass appear greener and richer. And as you can see here, it can help deepen the blue of the sky and darken the water in the scene, giving your footage a noticeable boost in contrast and saturation. However, the physics of polarizers does come with strings attached. Sky polarization varies with the angle to the sun, so you can end up with uneven gradients. They can also interact strangely with LCD screens and other displays that emit polarized light. And finally, you lose around 1 to 2 stops of light, so you're essentially getting an ND2 to ND4 filter you didn't ask for. Luckily, that usually isn't a problem since you most often use a CPL in brighter conditions, but it's worth keeping in mind. Next we have NDPL filters, and given what we've just covered, you can probably guess what they do. They combine the light reduction of an ND filter with the reflection control of a polarizing filter. And just like the CPL, they feature that rotating ring that acts like a volume knob for reflections. Now, on my Osmo Pocket 3, I normally used plain ND filters for cinematic travel footage. But with the Luna Ultra, I'm planning to main these ND-PL hybrids instead. That's not because they're necessarily better, but simply because I'm already comfortable managing basic NDs and want to start experimenting with polarization and the more dramatic effect it can have on your image. For most people though, I'd say plain NDs are the better place to start unless you know you'll be shooting a lot of water, glass, snow, or other reflective surfaces and don't mind the extra hands-on adjustment and caveats that come with a polarizer. Now let's talk about Freewell's Glow Mist filter, which is their take on a classic black mist diffusion filter. If you look closely at the glass on the filter, you'll see these tiny black specks embedded inside. And watch what happens when I put it on the camera. The filter causes bright highlights to bloom and glow, giving the footage a softer, hazier atmosphere. It also takes the edge off the camera's digital sharpness and slightly lowers contrast. These filters are especially popular for night shooting, where bright lights against dark backgrounds make the effect much more noticeable. While I love this stylistic look, it's definitely situational. Most of the time, you'll probably want clean and sharp footage without the hazy veil. But when you want to create a specific atmospheric mood, it's a fantastic tool to have in your kit. The filter I'm showing here is the Glow Mist 1/4, which gives you a pretty unmistakable diffusion effect. But Freewell also makes a weaker 1/8 version if you want something a bit more subtle. Now, unlike NDs or polarizing filters, where the effect is either very difficult or flat out impossible to recreate afterwards, you can mimic a diffusion look in post using tools like DaVinci Resolve's FX Glow and various other adjustments. However, I struggle to make diffusion look anywhere near as pronounced or organic as the physical filter. So if you really like this aesthetic, I'd say the actual filter is definitely the better option as it gives you a more convincing result and saves you the hassle and time of doing it in post. Finally, let's talk about the light pollution reduction or LPR filter that's included in Freewell's everyday kit. This filter is designed to reduce the appearance of light pollution by blocking some of the wavelengths associated with common artificial lighting. I haven't tested it extensively, but in this city nightscape it was definitely doing something, with the sky appearing slightly bluer as the filter suppressed some of the orange urban glow. For regular night video though, I found the difference fairly subtle, so I don't see myself using it very often. Where it may be more useful is for astrophotography or night sky time-lapses. For example, in this time-lapse I shot previously on another camera, using an LPR filter may have resulted in a cleaner image. It's definitely the most niche filter in the set, so you'll immediately know whether or not it's for you based on what you use your Luna Ultra for. So that's all 6 filter types. Did any of them catch your interest? Well, if you're thinking of buying one, there are a few things to watch out for, because they're not all built the same. Probably the most important consideration is whether they have removal grooves on both sides. The hardest part of using these filters can simply be taking them off, and having grooves that you can catch with your fingernail makes a huge difference. These Freewell filters have a groove on both sides, which is ideal. The official Insta360 ND filters I bought have one on only one side, which is good but not as good. And some filters out there have no grooves at all, which I've seen users complain about. Another thing to consider is whether the filters can be stacked. These Freewell filters can be attached directly on top of one another. When I stacked the ND8 and ND16 to create an effective ND128, the image quality held up surprisingly well, with no obvious vignetting or other significant issues. Stacking likely isn't something you'll do very often, if at all, but it's a useful option to have, especially if you want to combine 2 different types of filter. And finally, cheaper filters can sometimes introduce more noticeable color casts, so I wouldn't automatically choose the cheapest option. I can't comment on how every other brand performs, since I've only tested these Freewell filters and Insta360's official ND filters, but I've been very happy with the filters I've got. So which of these are actually staying in my bag? ND filters are the obvious one. I use them constantly with my Osmo Pocket 3, although for my next few trips I'm planning to mainly use the ND-PL versions instead of the plain NDs. As I mentioned earlier, that's more of a personal development thing. I want to gain more experience using polarization and seeing what it can do for reflections, colors, and the overall look of the image. I'm also excited to bring out the glow mist filter occasionally, especially for urban night scenes where it can create a really cool atmosphere. Since I don't take many photos, I probably won't get much use out of the ND1000, but maybe if I keep it in my bag, I'll eventually find myself in a situation where it could create something interesting. And the LPR is likely going to be the filter I touch least, unless I decide to dabble in Astro at some point where it might become helpful.